Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Arkanasa Radio Studios in Laredo, Texas. And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Today is October 21st, 2017, and this is episode number 77. I've stopped trying to go season 2, episode such and such. I kept losing track of the numbers and, well, I was getting a headache trying to do it, so I've decided to just count from number 1 show till today. Tonight, we're going to be talking about roadside attractions. This will be number 2. Had so much fun talking about the roadside attractions the first time, and I figured a 1-hour show just didn't adequately cover it all, so here we go with the second version. Before we get to talking about roadside attractions, I'd like to invite anyone listening to come by the Book Warehouse, 1600 Water Street in Laredo, Texas. October 28th at 5 p.m., we'll be having a book signing as well as a meet and greet. Hopefully some of the guys from the Laredo Paranormal Research Society will be there with me. I'll be signing copies of the LPRS book. The Heidelberg Project is an outdoor art project in Detroit, Michigan. Specifically, it is in the McDougal Hunt neighborhood on the city's east side, just north of the city's historically African-American Black Bottom area. It was created in 1986 by the artist Tyree Guyton, along with his wife Karen and grandfather Sam Mackey. The Heidelberg Project is in part a political protest, as well as Tyree Guyton's childhood neighborhood. It began to deteriorate after the 1967 riots. Guyton described coming back to Heidelberg Street after serving in the Army. He was astonished to see that the surrounding neighborhood looked as if a bomb had gone off. At first, the project consisted of his painting a series of houses in Detroit Heidelberg Street with bright dots. They used lots of colors to make the houses stand out, as if a polka dot house didn't already stand out. Then they attached discarded items to the siding. Just about anything would do. Old teddy bears, hubcaps, other things found in the trash. This was a constantly evolving work that transformed a hardcore inner-city neighborhood, where people were afraid to walk, even in the daytime, into one in which neighbors took pride and where visitors could come to see what was new in this colorful and artistic neighborhood. Despite the area being characterized by high levels of blight and poverty, the evolving artwork grew Tyree Guyton. He worked on the Heidelberg Project daily with the children who lived in the neighborhood. He and director Janine Whitfield gave lectures and workshops on the project around the country. Their main goal was to develop the Heidelberg Project into the city's first indoor and outdoor museum, complete with an artist's colony, creative art center, community garden, amphitheater, and more. In 2005, the Heidelberg Project was awarded the Rudy Brunner's Award for Urban Excellence's Silver Medal. The city government of Detroit has demolished many of Guyton's projects. The first attack was on Guyton's Baby Doll house in 1989. The house had been decorated with hundreds of old dolls, all mounted to the siding. The city had some mysterious reason for tearing the house down. Oprah referred to his art as a nuisance on national TV, and the city moved in and tore down several of Tyree's art projects. In the Baby Doll house, most of Tyree's artworks were destroyed as well. At 5 o'clock in the morning on November 26, 1991, the city bulldozers and police appeared at one of his art pieces unannounced. They gave him only 15 minutes to retrieve items he wanted to save from destruction. Another demolition of the Heidelberg project was ordered under Mayor Dennis Archer on February 4, 1999. That ended in the ruin of the house Gaitan termed Your World, Happy Feet, and the Canefield House. The Heidelberg project has managed to continue despite all the efforts of the elites who want to tell others how to live. In 2007, two books were published about the Heidelberg project. A children's book was written by Linda McLean, and a coffee table book entitled Connecting the Dots. Tyree Gaitan's Heidelberg project was published by Wayne State University Press. In 2011, the HP released its first children's book, Magic Trash, a story of Tyree Gaitan and his art. The Heidelberg project celebrated its 25th anniversary in 2011. Today, the story of the project is being relocated to a different part of the neighborhood because their headquarters was sold to a developer for $1,200,000. For some unknown reason, the government of Detroit refuses to fix the neighborhood up, but is willing to stop anyone else from trying. The Heidelberg project is recognized around the world as a demonstration of the power of creativity in creating hope and a bright vision for the future. Some of the houses that remain on Heidelberg Street include the New White House, formerly Dottie Waddy, the Number House, along with the Detroit Industrial Gallery and Artist Studio Home that was purchased and maintained by Detroit artist Tim Burke. South of Spring Green, Wisconsin, is the most extraordinary house I've ever seen. This is not the kind of place you'll pass as you drive from one place to another because it sits well off the beaten path. Halfway between Spring Green and Dodgeville is what has become known as the House on the Rock. It's far more than anyone's home. It has become a legend amongst those in the search of roadside attractions. The house itself was built atop Deer Shelter Rock, a column of rock approximately 200 feet tall that stands out in the wooded area. You can see the house from Highway 23 a mile away. But if you don't know what you're looking at, you'd never guess what all can be found inside. The Via Maria, as it was originally known, was built in 1923 and designed by well-known architect Frank Riley. As the house grew, people driving by would stop and ask if they could look around. The owner, Alex Jordan, thought if people wanted to wander about and look, maybe they'd be willing to pay for the privilege. He charged a nominal fee, but the place wasn't actually open to the public until the 60s. When it did finally open as a tourist attraction, the name was changed to the House on the Rock, and the name has stuck until today. The house grew over the years and is still being added to. I think my dad was too impressed by the design because the house he built over the years never had a plan or design. It just kind of grew up out in that cow field. Additions were made to the House on the Rock, and other buildings were built around the base of the rock. These buildings were more utilitarian and used to house the collection that has continued to grow. The complex now features the streets of yesterday, a recreation of an early 20th century American town. Walking along the streets, you'll feel like you've been transported back in time, if not for the other tourists. There's a buggy parked at the curb and trees growing along the yards. Not real trees, but you'd never know by looking. We're going to take a brief pause here, play a couple of commercials, so don't go away. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Are you taking care of your skin? Or are you going to wait and see how time treats you? Take care today by contacting Lourdes James, Independent Beauty Consultant, at 956-723-3019. Don't let time get the best of you. Coffee, nectar of the gods. And at the Organic Man Coffee Trike, you'll find coffee made the right way, one delicious cup at a time. Stop on by 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. And remember, life is too short to drink bad coffee. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Did you hear a bump in the night, and you think it might be a ghost? Contact the Laredo Paranormal Research Society at laredoparanormal@hotmail.com. That's the LPRS for all your otherworldly needs. This is Arkanasa Radio you've been listening to. You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back to the show. Now, we were just talking about the House on the Rock. The Heritage of the Sea, featuring nautical exhibits and a 200-foot model of a fanciful whale-like sea creature battling a giant octopus. Be sure to look in the whale's mouth. He was in the process of eating a rowboat. Along the walkway, you'll see models of old sailing ships. The Music of Yesteryear, a huge collection of automatic music machines. Violins and trumpets are played by machines. Old-time music, you won't find anything by Pink Floyd, mostly Dixieland and jazz. You can also find the world's biggest indoor carousel. Don't confuse this with a merry-go-round. A carousel turns counterclockwise, and a merry-go-round goes clockwise. I had to look that up. That is the only difference. Direction of travel: the carousel at the House on the Rock features 269 carousel animals, 182 chandeliers, and over 2,000 lights, and hundreds of mannequin angels hanging from the ceiling. The carousel has no horses. During the winter, the attraction features a Christmas theme with decorations and a large collection of Santa Claus features. Many of the bathrooms in and around the displays are decorated with strange objects, including mannequins, flowers, and preserved animals. The Infinity Room, the 14th room of the house, completed in 1985, this engineering marvel extends 218 feet out over the scenic valley and 156 feet above the forest floor. The Infinity Room has 3,264 windows for walls that treat guests to a truly spectacular view. Jordan sold the house in 1988 to a friend who continued building on the site, adding to the collections of knickknacks and exhibits featuring authentic pieces, reproductions, and specially made examples of everything. The most recent addition is the Spirit of Aviation, a collection of large model airplanes in a themed room. Another exhibit, the Transportation Building, is under construction, but visitors can walk through and view the work in progress. If you've never been there, you don't know what you're missing. If you have been there, but not yesterday, things have changed. The House on the Rock is an ever-changing collection of sights and sounds that you can't possibly take in just one visit. To get there, you'll need to drive to either Spring Green or Dodgeville, Wisconsin. South from Spring Green on 23, halfway between the two towns, you'll see House on the Rock Road. I plan to go back someday soon, but with so many roadside attractions out there, it's hard to decide when. The Minnesota Valley Canning Company was founded in 1903 in Le Sueur, Minnesota. It used the brand name Le Sueur Z for canned vegetables, starting in 1903. The name Le Sueur by itself was first used in 1933. The brand Green Giant Great Big Tender Peas was first used in 1925, and the figure of a giant was introduced 3 years later by Carly Stanek. See, what had happened was the discovery of a new pea species that was bigger than the normal pea. The pea was named the Prince of Wales. When none of the vegetable companies wanted to market these giant peas, the Minnesota Valley Company took them on and marketed them under the name Green Giant. The mascot looked more like a nasty caveman with a scowl, wearing a bearskin cloak. The idea for the caveman came from a story by the brothers Grimm. Today, we know them as Grimm's fairy tales, but back then they were very grim tales. Bad things happened, and they were not meant for small children. For example, in Hansel and Gretel, the witch is killed, and then the ungodly creature is shoved into an oven to be burned to ashes, screaming in pain until she died. Disney kind of skipped that part of the story. Back to the peas. 1935, a young copyright, Leo Burnett, revised the face of the brand. He traded the bearskin for the leafy suit, gave the Green Giant a smile, and put the word Jolly in front of the giant's name. The giant made his first television appearance in 1954 and was later voiced by Elmer Dressler Jr. The booming "Ho, ho, ho" became the giant's signature tagline in 1961. Since 1972, he has had a young apprentice, the little green sprout, who represents the consumer. I look at the green sprout in the same light as Scrappy-Doo and Scooby-Doo cartoons. I don't think anybody cares for the addition, and it was the beginning of the end for the cartoon. The company was renamed to the Green Giant Company in 1950. In 1999, the marketing industry leading publication, Advertising Age, put out a list of the 20th century's top 10 advertising icons and placed the Green Giant at number 3. Number 1 was the Marlboro Man, and the Ronald McDonald Clown came in second. Betty Crocker came in fourth, followed by the Energizer Bunny, the Pillsbury Doughboy, Aunt Jemima, the Michelin Man, Tony the Tiger, and Elsie the Borden Cow. The valley of the Jolly Green Giant refers to the Minnesota River Valley around Le Sueur. Today, just before dropping down into the valley, heading south on U.S. Route 169, an enormous wooden sign of the Jolly Green Giant, along with the little green sprout, a.k.a. the interloper, is visible with the caption, "Welcome to the Valley." 60 miles further south on Route 169, in the city of Blue Earth, Minnesota, stands a 55-foot fiberglass statue of the Jolly Green Giant. The statue was first unveiled in 1978 and was set on its permanent base in July 6, 1979. The statue attracts over 10,000 visitors a year. The statue was the idea of Paul Hedberg, the founding owner of the local radio station KBEW. During weekdays in the summertime, Hedberg would interview people passing through Blue Earth on U.S. Highway 169 for his popular radio program, Welcome Travelers. At the end of each interview, Hedberg presented guests with a sample of the peas and corn which he had been produced by the town's Green Giant canning plant, along with a sample of what passed for the blue riverbed clay that gave the town its name. Many of these interviews expressed a desire to see some kind of a green giant, either real or manufactured, depending on the age of the guests. Paul Hedberg said, "My idea for the statue had its beginnings with my Welcome Travelers program on KBEW. After I'd given my interviewees their gifts of Blue Earth and cans of peas and corn, they'd often ask, 'Where's the green giant?' The children traveling with their parents expected to see the giant in the flesh, and would ask me where he was. I like to have fun with these kids, so I'd treat the giant like you would Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. 'You just missed him,' I'd tell them, their eyes getting wider and wider. 'But keep a lookout when you get back on the road. He stepped on a car last week.' In the late 1970s, the nation's first transcontinental freeway, Interstate 90, was nearing completion. The final stretch of the road to be opened was that portion surrounding Blue Earth. Hedberg was one of the many civic leaders instrumental in rerouting the freeway closer to Blue Earth, and saw this as the opportunity to attract new visitors to the town. And keeping in mind how the prospect of seeing the green giant fired the imagination of children who passed through Blue Earth with their parents each summer, in 1977, Hedberg contacted Thomas H. Wyman, the president of Green Giant, to see if the company would allow a statue of their corporate symbol to be erected in Blue Earth, to draw the attention of the steady stream of travelers who would be utilizing the new interstate. In his autobiography, The Time of My Life, Hedberg recounts how Wyman was receptive to the idea, on the condition that funds for the project were raised locally, and that the company had to give approval to the final design. After this meeting, Hedberg approached several local businesses and asked each to contribute $5,000. Within a week, the full $50,000 had been secured. The 4-ton statue was crafted by Creative Display from Sparta, Wisconsin. Work began on the statue in the spring of 1978, with a target for completion to coincide with the opening of the Blue Earth's section of the Interstate 90 on September 23, 1978. The statue was not delivered fully assembled. The pose Wyman approved had the giant standing with hands on hips, but he was then too wide to fit on the flatbed truck, so his 2 arms were transported separately to be attached upon arrival at Blue Earth. As Hedberg remembers in his autobiography, "I made arrangements with a local crane owner to display the statue temporarily at the site of the I-90 dedication. It would be suspended from this crane, with straps under his armpits. The giant offered his approval smile for what we'd accomplished with the Highway Administration. It was a spectacular piece of publicity for Blue Earth. If you have a burning desire to see the Jolly Green Giant, you'll need to drive along Interstate 90, along the southern edge of Minnesota, between Albert Lea and Fairmount. Look for State Highway 169. From there, drive to the town of Blue Earth. Just look for the Green Giant. I'd say you can't miss him, but that is not always true. Any time I hear that phrase, I prepare for a long, protracted voyage." The Shrine of the Grotto of the Redemption is a religious shrine located in West Bend, Iowa, in the Roman Catholic Diocese of Sioux City. a conglomeration of 9 grottos depicting scenes in the life of Jesus. The grotto contains a large collection of minerals and petrifications and is believed to be the largest grotto in the world. A grotto is any type of natural or artificial cave that is associated with modern, historic, or prehistoric use by humans. When it is not an artificial garden feature, a grotto is often a small cave near water, and it's often flooded, or it's liable to flood at high tide. It is also considered to be the world's most complete man-made collection of minerals, fossils, shells, and petrifications in one place. The total value of all those rocks and minerals which made the grotto is over $4,308,000. Over 100,000 people visit the grotto each year. The shrine includes a museum with precious and semi-precious stones from throughout the world and photos and artifacts about the construction of the shrine. Father Paul Doberstein was a German immigrant ordained as a priest in 1897. He became critically ill with pneumonia and promised to build a shrine to the Virgin Mary if she would intercede on his behalf. After he recovered from his illness, he began stockpiling rocks and precious stones. Construction of the grotto began in 1912 and continued year-round for the next 42 years. Father Doberstein used the knowledge and skills gained during construction of his first grotto, honoring Our Lady of Lourdes, while traveling at St. Francis Seminary in St. Francis, Wisconsin. His method was to set fancy rocks and gems in concrete. In 1946, Father Louis Grieving began helping Doberstein with the construction. The grotto covered an area the size of a city block. When Doberstein died in 1954, Matt Zarinsky helped work on the grotto until his retirement in 1959. Construction continues to this day and has been maintained by Deacon Gerald Strite since 1994. Father Doberstein's work inspired Matthias Wernes, who also attended St. Francis Seminary, to build the Dickeyville Grotto in Dickeyville, Wisconsin in 1930, thus starting the grotto building movement in America. As of August 1st, 2015, the grotto has been raised to the status of diocesan shrine by R. Walker Nichols, Bishop of Sioux City. This is the first Catholic religious shrine designated in the diocese. And it's time for another commercial break. We're going to take a brief pause, and we'll be right back after this, so don't go away. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Makeup isn't something you want to just smear on and hope for the best. You might come out looking like Lon Chaney. Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and get a free makeover to see how makeup should be done. 956-723-3019. Coffee makes the world go round, and around here we have the Organic Man Coffee Trike, 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. If you're not looking for coffee, try their tea. It's the best in town. And remember, life is too short to drink bad coffee. If you need to squint and hold things out at arm's length to see them, maybe you should get your eyes checked. Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, is right across from the Embassy Suites. Let's stop squinting and start seeing.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arcanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arcanasa Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back to the show. Every time I think I've managed to get all the gremlins under control, they start popping back up again. Need an old priest and a young priest and... never mind. Getting back to the grotto. The grotto has a gift shop if you're looking for more souvenirs. It helps raise money to keep the construction going. If you look at some roadside attractions that are just there for your viewing pleasure, with time, the place is less pleasurable because of neglect. You can celebrate Mass in the St. Peter and Paul Church right next door. If you'd like to go by and have a look, the grotto is located at 208 First Avenue, Northwest, West Bend, Iowa. West Bend is in the northwest of Iowa. If you're driving north on Interstate 35, take a left on US Highway 18. Turn south on 10th Avenue, turn west on 4th Street, and look for the big old steeple on your left. This reminds me of the Christ in the Smokies Museum and Gardens. We stopped in Pigeon Forge to spend the night at an RV park. We drove over to Smoky Mountains to look around and see some nature. It has been 45 years since I was there last time. We were kind of chased out of the park by a torrential downpour. It rained like it was the end of the earth. I was looking for an ark to board. The funny thing was, just up the road, we found the Titanic. It's parked on the side of the main road from Pigeon Forge to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Well, the rain did stop for a bit, so we drove into Gatlinburg to look around. Talk about sights to see. This is one of the biggest tourist spots in the country. A Dollywood is there, as well as just about anything you can imagine. On a side street is the Christ in the Smokies Museum and Garden. It's right next to the Gatlinburg Skylift. You'll see it as the cars pass over the whole town. We went in and had a look. You'll see Jesus as he got through life and death depicted in some pretty good dioramas. The artwork is impressive and the costumes look authentic. Someone did a lot of work putting this together. The museum is a nice quiet retreat from the hustle and bustle of the town outside, but they need a coffee shop. If you've never been to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, you are missing a lot. The best way to describe the place is one giant roadside attraction. For instance, they have the Salt and Pepper Shaker Museum, a celebration of America's favorite collectibles with over 20,000 sets of shakers in all sizes, shapes, and material. There's the Appalachian Ghost Walks, historic walking tours where you just might see somebody from the past. The Old Smoky Moonshine Distillery, for those of you that think getting drunk and falling down is fun, well, there's your place. There's the Shoot 'em Up Cinema. No kidding. You get to sit on a horse and shoot at the screen. Okay, it's not a real horse, and it's not a real gun, but you get to act like you're in the movie and not worry about getting thrown out. It's kind of like Disneyland, but without the giant rodent. Still, my favorite attraction was the Smoky Mountains. I like nature, as long as it doesn't try to kill me. Next trip to Tennessee, we'll try to get more time in walking through the woods and less time bumping into other tourists. Right outside of town is the Bush's Baked Bean Museum. Yes, and it is worth visiting. They give you the history of the company and how it does what it does and does it so well. You'll catch yourself saying, roll that beautiful bean footage as you're walking around town. We also got our picture taken with Duke. Okay, wasn't the real Duke, but sure looks like Duke. The Pigeon Forge is so close to Gatlinburg, you'd think they're the same town. There are attractions in Pigeon Forge as well. Things like the Alcatraz East Crime Museum. The museum gives visitors a behind-the-scenes story to our nation's crime history. Let your kids see what's in store for them should they not behave properly. Then there's the Titanic Museum. This is something to see even if you don't go inside. The museum looks like a huge steamship, and it comes complete with an iceberg right on the side of the boulevard. The boulevard is one long, non-stop collection of tourist attractions. It runs from Pigeon Forge to Gatlinburg. Wonderworks is another oddity you can spot from a distance. It looks like a big old 3-story building that fell from the sky and landed upside down. The roof is dug into the parking lot, and the foundation is now used to keep the rain out. Every age can appreciate the hands-on activities, interactive exhibits, and demonstrations that are found within. There's an inversion tunnel, an anti-gravity chamber, a replica of the Mercury space capsules, and a hurricane hole with 65-mile-per-hour winds. Well, it's not really a hurricane at 65, but the recreation of the 1989 San Francisco earthquake lets you experience the effects of a 5.3 magnitude earthquake. There are more than 150 interactive exhibits, including the Bubble Room, where you can wrap yourself inside a giant bubble. If you'd like to visit either Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg, or both, the way we always go is by taking Interstate 40 east out of Knoxville and drive to 66. You can only go one way, so turn south. It's a good-sized road, but watch the traffic. There will be lots of others all trying to get there along with you. At Sevierville, you'll take 441. It's a nice drive with things to see. The signs are very easy to follow. Now for a word of advice. These towns are set in a valley between some enormous mountains. When it rains, it comes down hard. It rained every day we were there, so bring a raincoat or an umbrella, or both. A Tico nun used to run an RV dealership in Hatch, New Mexico. He'd always had a thing for great big displays. Items so when you found a giant man formerly used to sell mufflers, he bought it and put it on display holding a small RV in his hand. When he and his wife opened a restaurant, they named it Sparky's after a huge robot she had built from old tractor parts. Then they began decorating the place with other people's icons. Colonel Sanders is seen passing the day with Ronald McDonald. They have a small version of the Statue of Liberty standing next to an oversized pug. There's also a giant Uncle Sam next to a dinosaur. Lots to see, and don't forget, it's a restaurant, so maybe you should have some food while you take in all those photos. They serve ice cream, espresso, barbecue, and New Mexico green chili cheeseburgers. If you watch American Pickers, you've seen Tico in the Daredevil Duffy episode. To get to Hatch, turn north off Interstate 10 at Las Cruces and drive north on I-25. It's a short drive. It took Ross Ward over 40 years to carve, collect, and lovingly construct what is now Tinkertown Museum. His miniature wood-carved figures were first part of a traveling exhibit driven to county fairs and carnivals in the 1960s and 70s. Today, over 50,000 glass bottles form rumbling walls that surround a 22-room museum. Wagon wheels, old-fashioned storefronts, and wacky Western memorabilia make Tinkertown's exterior as much a museum as the wonders within. Inside the museum, the magic of animation takes over. The inhabitants of the raucous little western town animate to hilarious life. Under the big top, diminutive circus performers challenge tigers and defy gravity, while the fat lady fans herself and a polar bear teeters and totters. Throughout eccentric collections of Americana, wedding cake couples, antique tools, bullet, pencils, and much, much more fill Tinkertown's winding hallways. Otto, the one-man band, and Esmeralda, the fortune teller, need only a quarter to play a tune or predict your future. Through a doorway and access a ramp waits a big-sized surprise, a 35-foot antique wooden sailboat that braved a 10-year voyage around the world. Ever a work in progress, Tinkertown is ready to inspire your imagination and awaken your creative spirit. They look forward to seeing you soon. To find Tinkertown, take I-40 out of Albuquerque. At Tijeras, turn north on 14. When you come to the entrance of Sandia Park, turn left and drive until you see what looks like an eclectic collection of Old West memorabilia. You have arrived at Tinkertown. The Little Ailey Inn, previously the Rachel Bar and Grill, is a small bar, restaurant, and motel located in Rachel, Nevada, along the extraterrestrial highway. The business has been running for over 20 years and is frequented by visitors to the local Area 51. Well, you don't actually visit Area 51 unless you're an alien or you work for the secret government. The Alien has a variety of Area 51 and UFO-related merchandise for sale, such as maps of the area, posters, postcards, toys, etc., and offers an alien burger. Before you start out for Rachel, keep in mind they have no gas in town, so fill up before you go. The inn opened in 1989. The original owners were Joe, now deceased, and Pat Travis. In 1991, Joe and Pat wanted something unique for the bar and grill because they felt that Joe and Pat's was not exciting. According to patron Bruce Hooker, they held a contest which was won by Bruce Hooker with A. Lee Inn. The current owners of the Little A. Lee Inn are Pat and her daughter Connie. Living right next to Nellis Air Force Base and within spitting distance of Area 51, everyone in town is either looking into flying saucers or will give you a hand if you're looking. And keep in mind, if you get too close to Area 51, you'll be arrested and fined. Oh, and the black mailbox is just a mailbox. It has no significance to the base. It's not even black anymore. It's white. It belongs to a rancher who owned the land there. People park by the mailbox because it's just about the only landmark out there. Now, Area 51 is not a roadside attraction, but hundreds of folks swing by anyway. If you have an urge to see what little there is to see, head north from Las Vegas on I-15. Then turn on to the Great Basin Highway. Drive north until you see the connection for 375. Turn west and follow the road into Rachel. Stop into the Alien and ask for directions. Earthlings are welcome there. Be sure to buy something. They have to pay the bills. Be sure you have enough gas, water, and your car is in good shape. If you break down, you're kind of on your own. We're going to take a brief pause here and play a couple of more commercials, so don't go away. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. Coffee makes the world go round. And around here, we have the Organic Man Coffee Trike. 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. If you're not looking for coffee, try their tea. It's the best in town. And remember, life is too short to drink bad coffee. Did you hear a bump in the night and you think it might be a ghost? Contact the Laredo Paranormal Research Society at laredoparanormal@hotmail.com. That's the LPRS for all your otherworldly needs. Did you go out UFO hunting and couldn't focus on the sky? Swing on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle Del Norte, right across from the Embassy Suites. That's not a weather balloon, that's a flying saucer. This is Arkanasa Radio you've been listening to. You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back to the show. And getting on with some of these roadside attractions. The Fremont Troll, also known as the Troll or the Troll Under the Bridge, is a public sculpture in the Fremont neighborhood of Seattle, Washington. 1990, the Fremont Art Council launched an art competition whose partial goal was to rehabilitate the area under the bridge, which was becoming a dumping ground and a haven for drug dealers. The piece, built later that same year, won the competition. The Troll is a mixed-media colossal statue located on North 36th Street at Troll Avenue North, under the north end of the George Washington Memorial Bridge, also known as the Aurora Bridge. It is clutching an actual Volkswagen Beetle, as if it had just swiped it from the roadway above. The vehicle has a California license plate. The Troll is 18 feet, weighs 13,000 pounds, and is made of steel, rebar, wire, and concrete. He is interactive. The visitors are encouraged to climb on him and try to poke out one of his good eyes. Prior to any construction of the area, a local legend had it that Native Americans in the area referred to the site as the Forbidden Land, and travelers passing through would often find their horses refusing to go through the area. A gold assay office was built in the area in 1905, which slid from its foundation in the early 1910s, coming to a rest at an odd angle. The building is still there and is called the Oregon Vortex and the House of Mystery. John Litster, born in Alva, Scotland, was a geologist, mining engineer, and physicist. He developed the area in the early 1920s and opened it to the public in the 1930s. He conducted thousands of experiments within the vortex until his death in 1959. Today you can visit the area and conduct some of your own experiments. Gravity is challenged by a golf ball that rolls uphill. Then there's that weird size anomaly. If you stand in one place, you'll look a lot taller than if you move just a few feet away. You can stand a broom on end and it will stay in place. The entire zone seems to have stepped out of a different world. The Oregon Vortex has been featured on the Travel Channel, Supernatural Destinations, as well as the Top 10 Places of Mystery. The Learning Channel showed the vortex on Strange Science Weird Places. The History Channel ran it on History's Mysteries. Discovery, and the Beyond Bizarre. Even Japan got in on it by filming The Unbelievable and The Seven Wonders of the U.S. The Vortex has been featured on Ripley's Believe It or Not, You Asked for It, and Unsolved Mysteries. But seeing it on TV isn't quite as cool as being there in person. If you'd like to check it out for yourself, the Vortex is next door to Gold Hill, Oregon. Gold Hill is halfway between Grants Pass and Medford, Oregon. Take I-5 into Gold Hill. From there, you want to drive to the west side of town and look for Sardine Creek Road. Follow the signs from there. I'd drive over there right now, but it's a 2,000-mile drive. Maybe next year. Loren Coleman first started pursuing unusual, often unexplainable animals in the 1960s, and has since become one of the world's foremost experts in the field of cryptozoology. He will be appearing at the Texas Bigfoot Conference in Jefferson, Texas this Saturday. The discipline, as defined by the master himself, is the study of hidden or unknown animals. There are usually large zoological species that to date remain unverified by science, such as the Yeti, Bigfoot, lake monsters, and sea serpents, as well as hundreds of others yet to be found animals worldwide. It also encompasses the study of animals of recent discovery, such as the coelacanth, okapi, the megamouth shark, giant panda, and the mountain gorilla. I first met Mr. Coleman in an elevator in Tyler, Texas. We were there attending a Bigfoot conference, and I went to the truck to get my camera. Mr. Coleman stepped into the elevator, and as we talked all the way to the lobby, 2 whole floors, then he took me around and he introduced me to everybody there as if we were old friends from way back. I felt the need to say, yes, we've known each other ever since the 2nd floor. Up in Portland, Maine, Mr. Coleman runs the Cryptozoology Museum. I want to run up there and see the place, but once again, it's 2,300 miles, and that's just one way. The museum contains all kinds of replicas of unknown species that have been seen and photographed throughout history. The museum holds a wide selection of casts found all over the world. There's everything from the Jersey Devil's footprints to a replica of the Montauk Monster. The museum is at 4 Thompson Point Road, Suite 106, Portland, Maine. Now here's an attraction I plan to avoid. The Vent Haven Ventriloquists Museum in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. I don't like dolls. If you've listened to the show for a while, you'll know about that episode on Night Gallery. If not, go back and listen to the past shows. To me, a ventriloquist's dummy is way beyond a mere doll. Ventriloquists are in a league all of their own when it comes to strange. They're kind of like they spend too much time alone with their toys, and now they think they're alive, or maybe they are, and we think they're just toys. Go watch the movie with Anthony Hopkins called Magic, 1978, and then see what you think. The museum holds over 800 ventriloquists dummies and other paraphernalia dealing with the subject. Creepy. Do you suppose, late at night, after everyone has gone home, when the lights are all turned off, you just might hear them talking? If you don't think ventriloquists are too bizarre, then swing on by 33 West Maple Avenue. That sounds familiar. Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. Don't tell them anything about the show. It's too creepy. The Mississippi River Basin Model Waterways Experimental Station, located near Clinton, Mississippi, was a large-scale hydraulic model of the entire Mississippi River Basin, covering an area of 200 acres. The model was built from 1943 up until 1966, and it operated from 1949 until 1973. Due to local flooding, the Army Corps of Engineers went about building controls along the waterway. Levees and locks were built, but they had no way of testing if their work would help or not after having another flood. Back then, you could just put together a computer model. In 1941, Eugene Raybould proposed a large-scale hydraulic model which would allow the engineers to simulate weather, floods, and evaluate the effects of flood control measures on the entire system. This would cover approximately 200 acres, including all existing and proposed control measures, and a network of streams nearly 8 miles in total length. The model is 1/100th vertical and 1/2000th horizontal scale. The model was comprised of individually cast 10-foot by 10-foot concrete panels, contoured with land shape and riverbed, including tributaries, cliffs, lakes, floodplains, bridges, and levees. As World War II got going, labor was hard to find. The men who would have been building the model were off fighting the Nazis. Somebody suggested using German and Italian prisoners of war. Construction at the site was begun in January 1943, beginning with the building of housing for those in charge in the project and followed by setting up a POW camp for the prisoner labor. The first group of prisoners brought to the camp were members of Erwin Rommel's African Corps. What a change! They went from fighting in the desert to building in a swamp. Now, unlike the Nazis, the work wasn't done with slave labor. The workers received pay for the work they did. By May 1946, the last of the prisoners had been repatriated and the site was almost ready for model construction. Individual sections were in operation from 1949, but construction was not completed until 1966, partly due to the complexity of the modeling such a vast area, but also due to irregular funding. Even then, such an important project was being shunted back and forth by politicians who always found other things to spend the money on, like their own offices. 1952, the Missouri River segment was fully operational and used extensively to predict problems during that year's April floods, helping to avoid damage of an estimated $65 million. By 1959, the model was complete and the comprehensive testing program was begun, which coordinated the entire model. 1964, the site was open to visitors for self-guided tours, and facilities included an assembly center, a 40-foot tall observation tower, an operation observation tower, and elevated platforms. It drew about 5,000 visitors a year. Tests on individual problems were conducted until 1971, but high costs of running the facility along with the growth of computer modeling meant that the facility was put on standby. The last use was in 1973 when the potentially catastrophic failure arose at the old river control structure. The model was used to show that the untested Marganza spillway could be opened effectively without diverting polluted water through New Orleans and Baton Rouge, as well as identifying levees that required some fixing. 1993, the site was taken over by the city of Jackson and designated as a Mississippi landmark, and a city park was formed around the site. The cost of maintaining the site as a tourist attraction was too high, so the model was abandoned and it became overrun. In 2000, the model was included in the Mississippi Heritage Trust, a 10 most endangered sites list. On occasion, the project was visited and blogged about by several urban explorers and photographers. 2010, it was reported that the panels were still intact, and observation platforms and walkways were still in place. In 2011, students from the Louisiana State University received an honor award from the American Society of Landscape Architecture for their project to revitalize the park and relaunch the model as a tourist attraction. If you'd like to take a look at the project, drive west from Jackson, Mississippi on Interstate 20. Take Springdale Road south. Turn left onto McRaven Road. In about 750 feet, you'll see a road going north into the trees. Congratulations, you're there. Take lots of photographs. There's no telling how much longer the place will be around. No, we didn't cover all the roadside attractions out there, just the ones I could find enough information on to do justice on the air. Remember to stop by the Book Warehouse, 1600 Water Street in Laredo, October 28th at 5 p.m. We'll be having a book signing as well as a meet and greet. You can meet the members of the Laredo Paranormal Research Society and maybe pick up a copy of the book if you feel like it. I hope you found this informative as well as somewhat strange. Until next week, this is Chris James.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, they say murder 3? Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?